imagine 3 years from now, it's your funeral. What do you want them to say about the kind of person you are?
The true meaning of success is to be able to walk from failure to failure with no loss of enthusiasm. Right? You have the end in mind. Christy, welcome to the arena. So glad to have you here today.
Hey, how are you doing?
We're doing really good. I'm excited to be here today. I'm excited to continue our podcast on this amazing book by Stephen Covey, the seven habits of highly effective people. So today we're discussing the second habit, beginning with the end in mind. Very important habit to have, part of your foundation in life. I love the habit because it's such a good reminder of thinking big picture, thinking long term. So I would really love to have the discussion today of what does it mean to begin with the end in mind?
Yeah, so when you think about beginning with the end in mind, the way that Stephen Covey describes it is to begin with the end in mind is to begin each day with the image or the picture of the end of your life as the frame of reference or the criteria that everything else in your life is examined by, right? So when you begin with the end in mind, what you do is you have this vision for your life, and you can begin today and every day, like what you do today, what you do tomorrow, next week, next month, next year, all help you achieve that mission, all help you achieve that purpose. So they move you closer to that goal, right? So in the book, he has you go through the exercise of imagining your funeral, right? So imagine 3 years from now, you show up to a funeral and you realize that it's your funeral. And you're going to have a family member talk about you, and you're going to have someone from work, someone from your community, someone from church, and to imagine what is it that you would want them to say about you? What do you want them to say about the kind of person you are? What was your character? What achievements did you have? What contributions did you make? What difference did your life make in theirs?
It's such a powerful exercise to do, and I love the exercise. So I'm pretty sure a lot of y'all have heard this exercise before, and I would like to add something to the exercise that I've done myself as well, is not only to think about what you would love for your loved ones, your kids, your mom, your dad, all these amazing people in your life, like what would you like for them to say about you, but also what would you like them not to say about you, right? Such a good thing, really just knowing to be able to really go and say, all right, I really want them to say these things about me, but then be like, all right, what would I want them not to know about me? And that's a good roadmap to be able to have me like, all right, these are some of the things I need to work on. Like I would hate for people to say these things about me, right? Like, hey, this guy. So I sometimes do, and I'm like, gosh, like I'm very impatient. I'm a very impatient person. I really don't want people to be like, damn, Gus was super impatient and so and so. So it's such a good thing to be able to find good information and constructive criticism from your own self, right? Like really knowing like what do I want them to say about me, but also what would I like them not to say about me? So that's a really good thing. And I like what you said earlier too, is just really beginning with the end in mind is really having your energy, intentional energy, right? Of where you're directing your energy and your thoughts and your focus on. So it's such a powerful exercise.
Well, I think it's making sure, like, if you don't have that end in mind, or if you have that end in mind, you can make sure that whatever you do on any given day is taking you in the right direction. That nothing is holding you back from that mission, maybe being impatient, right? So when you understand that that's not what you want to be remembered for, that's not the character that you want people to see in you, when you start to be impatient, you can kind of examine yourself and say, is that what I want to be remembered for? Or is that taking me in the right direction? Is that in alignment with the vision and the values that I have in my life? Like, is that what matters most? And I think one of the interesting things is when you imagine your funeral, when you imagine that you could be dead 3 years from now. I think in one part of the chapter, he even asks you to imagine 6 months from now, if you were to die. Like, it totally puts our lives in a different context. You know, we live like we're going to live forever. But if you knew you only had 6 months to live, I think you start to really focus on what matters most. And that really is what it means to begin with the end in mind. What matters most? What is most important to you? What are your highest values?
So it's also something like you're applying it to a long term of your life, but you could apply this to, relationships, to your daily business, to just even simple, small tasks. Like how many times Have you ever tried doing something like a small little task of, you know, and you get so overwhelmed by, not really thinking of the end in mind, right? You get overwhelmed because, like, I, for example, like train my daughters. So this is something that I struggled with a lot. Like, I'm Nirvana's golf coach, and I remember beginning with in our early phases of golf, how frustrated I would get with her just not picking up the game, right? And I would get a little frustrated. I'm not gonna lie, I would lash out a little bit. However, my mentality of like, hey, think long term, right? Think of the end in mind, long term on this, what you're trying to accomplish. If I keep acting this way, she's probably not gonna have fun, and she's probably not gonna want to keep doing this.
Mm.
So maybe you should try to think long term. Try to think with the end in mind of what you're trying to do. Like I'm trying to get her to become an elite athlete, to be able to go to college and have an education and create bonds and friendships within the sport. And the way I'm behaving right now is not helping
Mhm.
any of those specific things.
Yeah.
So being able to just think it through, like, all right, think of a bigger picture. Think of this thing long term and how it's going to be effective, and really changes your perspective on how you're dealing with that specific
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah, it's kind of the difference between what do you want now and what do you want eventually, right? A lot of times we get so narrow focused on right now, this moment, and we don't think, like you're saying, the long term. So,
So yeah, that was very, very helpful for me in my life, and I've been able to apply that to different things, like even within my business, right, where things aren't going very well right now, right, and I'm just like, should I just give up? Like, there's been times I'm like, I'm just done, and I'm like, well, if I think long term, like, hey, today might not be the greatest day, but just keep going, tomorrow will be better, and keep
mhm.
keep making it happen, right? Think long term, 10 years down the road, where you create your business to a 20, $50 million company, you can pass it on to your kids. You're helping out all your employees grow within the business and all the things that you're doing, right? You get that mentality, and all of a sudden you're like, hey, this is not bad. I can deal with one bad day, right? I can deal with
Yeah,
2 bad days. I can deal with a bad week because I have the big picture in mind.
yeah.
And it's, yeah,
So that just gives energy and it gives like power to the things that you do, right? To keep going because you have that greater value. So the day, like you are not controlled by your moods, by your feelings, by the moment, right? Whether it's comfort or fear or doubt, or a bad day, because ultimately you're driven by this value that you have, this bigger value that is greater than your moods, greater than a setback, greater than a failure.
yeah, you're looking at the big picture, right? So I believe it's Winston Churchill that has a great quote, and I hope that he's the one that says this quote, but he says, the true meaning of success is to be able to walk from failure to failure with no loss of enthusiasm.
Mhm.
Because if you're able, the only way you're able to do that is because you have the big picture in mind, right? You have the end in mind. Like, all right, I'm doing this for a higher cause, a bigger picture. Does like these small failures that I'm doing right now have nothing to do with what's going to happen later? Because I know I'm going to be successful. I know I'm going to figure this out. And it's such a powerful tool to be able to have in your arsenal, in your mindset of begin with the end in mind. I love it. It's such a great, great, great habit to be able to have. And if you can apply it on a daily basis to everything that you're doing, small things, big things, large things, like from dealing with your kids, dealing with your business, dealing with your employees, being able to not be so caught up in this small minded thinking of, all right, this is happening now. And I understand it's not going well, but big picture, this is going to pass, right? And I got to think about how is this going to affect the bigger picture that I'm
Mhm.
trying to accomplish. One of the other questions that we wanted to talk about was, how do you begin with the end in mind?
How do you begin with the end in mind? So the best way to begin with the end in mind is to have a vision or a mission statement, right? Like a philosophy or a creed. So to write down your goals. And one of the things that Viktor Frankl says is that each of us, we have an awareness of our, we have a conscious, we have this understanding within us of what our unique mission and purpose is in life. So Viktor Frankl says that our mission, our purpose, the vision for our life, it's not something that we invent, right? It's not something that you pull out of nowhere. It's something that is already within you. And so it's something that you detect, right? So really becoming aware of who you are, using your imagination, using your conscience to ask yourself, what are my gifts, what are my talents, and to imagine the potential within you, and to recognize that the mission and the purpose that you have for your life is unique. It's unlike anyone else. It's specific to you. And another thing that he says is that your life cannot be repeated and it cannot be replaced. So when we're thinking about our mission, we think about, where can my life not be repeated? Where can I not be replaced? And for me, as a mother, as a wife, right, as a daughter, as a sister, I think those are places that I cannot be replaced, right? The difference that I make in those people's lives around me, no one else can make. So I have a unique mission. So really beginning with the end in mind is really understanding my responsibility. What have I been given, right? What is within me? What are the gifts? What are the talents? Who are the people around me? What are the opportunities that I have? And taking responsibility for that. Um, and when we don't, right? When we don't begin with this end in mind, like you say, if we forget, if we fall back into determinism, we become irresponsible. And if you become irresponsible, who's in control of your life? Right.
Absolutely. I love it. Just
So
being able to create a blueprint of what your purpose is in life.
yeah,
Like, and having that and writing it all down so that you keep coming back to it when you do forget or you do get
absolutely.
lost in
Yeah.
life and you lose your way, right? Like, that is your guide to life of what the end in mind that you have for yourself and you
Yeah.
built.
So all of the goals that you have, right? Your short-term goals, your long-term goals, that they're always moving you in that direction. But I think it's so important to recognize that each of us has a purpose, right? Most of us kind of go through life with this sense that, what is the meaning of my life, right? And a lot of times I think we begin to feel hopeless and life begins to feel meaningless because we don't connect with that part of ourselves. We don't connect with the unique vision and mission that we have, and it starts to feel hopeless. So unless we begin with this end in mind, we're going to feel lost. We're going to feel hopeless, and we're not going to be able to make the impact in those places that we're irreplaceable.
I love it. That's great advice.
Yeah. So another quote that he says in the book is, true success is success with self. So many times I think we get frustrated in the moment because most things take a lot longer than we think, and they take more work than we initially thought when we started out. And when we think about like true success is success with self, it's not. So many times when we set goals or we're thinking about the vision for our life, we think that it's something external. We're trying to achieve something, but it's really ultimately about who are you becoming in the process. And if you focus on your character, who you want to be as a person, and not so much something external, but recognize that success is internal, right? So he calls, habit 1, 2, and 3 is it's private victory. And before you can have a public victory of achieving these outward things, you have to first have victory with self. And that comes down to your own character, and recognize that it is a process, that it takes time, that although I fall short in the short term, in the long term, if I develop that character within me, then it puts me in a place where I can achieve that goal because I've worked my character up to it.
So such a valuable habit, like, why do you believe it is that people don't do this? Like, what stops people from thinking with the end in mind?
I think there's a few different things that keep us from beginning with the end in mind. And when I thought about what keeps me from beginning with the end in mind, right? Because I think, we kind of go back and forth. Sometimes we feel like we're on track, and, a lot of times we feel like we're off track. So when we're off track, what is it that stops us? And when I thought about it in my own life, when I didn't begin with the end in mind, it was really because I fell back to being irresponsible, right? So if you don't believe that you are in control of your life, if you don't believe that you can achieve something, you don't put in the work that it takes to go through the process of really thinking about, what do I want to be, and what do I want to do, and what do I want to achieve, and what do I want to accomplish, right? Like, I've written down my goals many times, and a lot of times I'll look at those goals and you kind of think, who am I kidding, right? Because most of our goals, they're bigger than what we've achieved or what we've accomplished. So I think a lot of times we fall back into determinism, right? We go through the process, we set the goals, we think of the vision, and then we say, well, I can't do that, or I don't know how to do that, or I don't have the talent for that. And what we realize is that we're going back to determinism. Like, I don't have a choice. There's nothing I can do about it. So I think for a lot of us, it's really we give up our responsibility. We don't take responsibility that we are in charge, that we can choose, that we can decide. Instead, we say, hey, I have this vision for my life. These are my goals. These are my dreams. These are my values. And yet when we look at them and we focus maybe sometimes on our past, and we focus on the future, and it's like this big goal, this big dream, and then we think, I don't have what it takes.
Yeah,
And we fall back into determinism, not recognizing that we are free to choose
being
how
able
we
to
live our
being able
lives.
to have the mentality or the mindset of the world is happening to me or I'm happening to the world, right? Victim mentality versus no, taking responsibility.
Yeah.
But I feel like also a lot of times is like for me is I just kind of sometimes forget. Like and you're so stuck on this small mentality, small picture, and you're inside this little bubble of your circumstances or whatever you're going through that you just sometimes just forget, right? Like, and that's why it's so important to have it written down, right? Like I have it written down, like I want my daughter to be an elite athlete, right? So when I'm having these struggles with her, and I can just be like, hey, big picture, we want to make it big one day. Like, don't allow your emotions on one bad practice to ruin with the end in mind of having the end in mind of her being an elite athlete one day. So like, calm down, take a deep breath. Like, let's not ruin it such short term, right? It's just short term, small picture mentality having that. And sometimes you just forget. You get so caught up in the moment, right? So caught up in these in this smaller mindset, smaller picture mentality that you just forget and you just lash out. So it's a constant, it's something you just have to have a constant reminder of, like, hey, begin with the end in mind. Have the big picture in mind. Big long-term mentality type deal. And I think it's very important that we just have it, some form of reminder. So that's why it's important to have your goals written down, right? Have whatever it is, the task you're trying to do, like write it down, like, hey, this is the big picture I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
And you're reading it every morning. You're reminding yourself so that when you are caught up in these moments, of frustration, you can be like, hey, I lost the battle today, but hey, we're going to come back tomorrow and we're going to keep going because we have a big picture in mind. We have the end in mind of what we're actually trying to accomplish. So great habit. I really love it. I think it's a very good key foundation for success. And it's been very good in my life to be able to always remember, think long-term, right? Think bigger picture, think with the end in mind. And I really want to thank you for being here today. I think it's a great habit. We'll be discussing the third habit on the next session. So thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, you're welcome. It was awesome.
Thank y'all.